Please welcome Morgantown City Councilor and West Virginia Housing Justice Board President, Brian Butcher.
Good evening. How's everybody doing here today in beautiful Wheeling, West Virginia? I love it. Thank you. So my name is Brian Butcher. I'm a lifelong organizer, board president of West Virginia Housing Justice. I'm a member of the working class and Morgantown's deputy mayor. So I'm honored and humbled to kick us off tonight alongside incredible advocates from across the Mountain State and, of course, Senator Sanders. So we're here tonight because we are fed up with being told we have to accept the brutal conditions the elites are forcing upon us. Right now in West Virginia, if you make minimum wage, you have to work 87 hours a week just to afford a modest 2-bedroom apartment. At the same time, cities are banning sleeping in public following Trump's executive order to imprison people with nowhere to sleep while cutting emergency shelter funding. In Morgantown, our emergency hotel shelter program has had its funding frozen. Rainbow House, our only LGBTQ affirming shelter, now fears it may have to close. And while this is going on, in the background, private equity is buying up mobile home parks, doubling and tripling lot rents, and letting them fall into disrepair to push those people out of the last form of affordable housing that we have in this state. They see our homes as numbers on a spreadsheet. They do not consider, they do not care about the families and the lives they are destroying in the process. That's right. We can. We've seen this before. We've seen elites come to our mountains to pillage the land. Now, the resources that they're extracting are the very roofs that are over our head. Their goal is simple: criminalize poverty and profit off the suffering. But here's what they don't get, and here's what gives me hope. There's a growing movement in West Virginia that you can see right here today. Across the state, mutual aid groups are stepping in where the government is failing. Right here in Wheeling, Ohio Valley Mutual Aid showed up for their neighbors in crisis during the floods. West Virginians are fighting back, organizing collectively for a better future, and we need each and every one of you to stand with us against the oligarchs who are pushing fascism to protect their power. Now, it's my honor to introduce a powerful advocate for poor people. Most of you probably know her well. Someone who has been doing the damn work in West Virginia across the state for years. Rattle the windows for Amy Jo Hutchison.
Stop, y'all, because holy crap. Wow. Yeah, see, listen, I changed my speech today so I wouldn't cry. Holy man. Yeah, thank you. So, hey, y'all. I'm Amy Jo. Listen, they gave me 3 minutes, and these days I get sidetracked so easily that sometimes it takes me that long to even remember how to spell my own last name. So I'm just gonna get into it. Man, y'all, thank you for that. Some of y'all, you might know me from a video of my congressional testimony a few years ago that went a little viral when I started rattling the windows. right? And 4 months after that, I moved my family to Triadelphia, which is a small rural town right up the road, with a population then of about 662 people. It was 662 people until June 14th, 8 weeks ago tomorrow. On the evening of June 14th, 70 million gallons of water ran off a hill that at one time was a mountain, but they cut the top off of her. But the water ran down a hill and destroyed and ravaged my town and the neighboring community of Valley Grove, along with parts of Wheeling. In 30 minutes' time, nearly 40 homes in my town were ripped off their foundations and relocated by the water. 9 people lost their lives in the flood, and 3 more died later from flood-related causes, bringing Triadelphia's death toll to 12. We waited 38 days after our FEMA request was submitted for the declaration to be signed by the president. Yeah. Boo's a lot nicer than the things I was saying. The 12 declarations for floods in 5 other states that had occurred after ours were signed in that time frame, in those 38 days. And for some reason, my house was the only house in the entire neighborhood that wasn't touched by water. Half of my flower bed was gone, that was it. My house set back just far enough. I sat back just far enough that I could stand on my porch and watch my neighbors' homes and their lives be literally beaten to death by a 14-foot tidal wave that came roaring down Route 40. We sit back just far enough that my privilege allowed me to choose whether I was going to stand outside on my porch and watch what was going on, or if I was going to walk back inside, light a cigarette, and pretend that nothing was happening. I was right then one of the most privileged and most powerful people in my town. For that moment, I was a 1%er. Yeah, not bad for a chick who's been in poverty for 53 years, right? But I also sat back just far enough that 4 days later, when my nervous system finally started to defrost that freeze trauma response I had, to realize that what my community needed at that time was an organizer, and I happen to know a girl. Yeah. Walking, sometimes crawling beside my community in this recovery effort has been the greatest honor of my life. And I'm right smack dab in the middle of Trump country. But party doesn't matter when we need each other to stay alive, y'all. And I found myself hugging my new friends so tightly to my chest, like I was their Appalachian auntie. And I was crying with them when they talked about being abandoned by the very people they had elected. And not one time did I ever think of looking at one of those folks and saying, this is what you get for who you voted for. Never one time. And I'm really mad at myself because just like a lot of us in this room, man, I fall for that bullshit all the time that I have to not like someone because of whatever party they belong to. A party that maybe I don't like just because I declined an invitation. And for the record, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, just so you know, when the comments start on social media. And I'm going to tell you, there are Trump supporters, Trump voters right here in this very room, and I know because they came here with me tonight. Because for the past 55 days, the only thing that has mattered in my community is that we created a space that allowed us to take care of ourselves. Our community came and filled in the gaps like we always do here in West Virginia when all hell and high water breaks loose. Trust me when I say that Amy Jo organizing Trump supporters was not on my bingo card, but here we are. And we're kicking ass at it together. And the longer it goes on, the more determined we become. Because it's a very bitter pill to swallow, to realize that the people representing you literally don't give a damn if you live or die. What I know from the 38 Days campaign is that we will reflexively, as humans, lean in when we have to, regardless of our party. And if we're going to change this system, we have to spend at least as much time loving on our neighbors as we do arguing with them on Facebook, y'all. Back during the mine wars, women went to extraordinary lengths to protect their families. I've read so many accounts of how women held it down. My 2 favorite stories are about how they organized to keep the trains full of travelers out. These trains had the men who were sent there to take their husbands' jobs. But there's this one tale, but first, I need all of y'all to take a second and just picture a train track in a rural West Virginia coal town. Do you see it in your head? Okay, so when the men left for work, the women would go and they would gather their daughters, and then they all went, all the women in that tent community, they all went and they pulled those railroad ties up by hand. Yeah, think about that. The women and the daughters grabbed those railroad ties and they worked together and they pulled those ties up out of the ground because they were tired of messing around. They were running villages that were mountain tent cities. They were cooking on fires. They were washing their clothes by hand. No one had time to keep messing with those trains. So they just organized and they eliminated the problem altogether. They just took the tracks up. That's the energy West Virginia needs right now. We, you and I, we need to choose us over them. West Virginia was literally born out of the resistance, y'all. Literally born out of the resistance. Resistance is in our DNA. We have the strength of our ancestors, and we have generations of West Virginia mountain mamas at the ready. It's time to help our communities reroute those tracks. We have to reroute those tracks with people who aren't afraid to come and eat a meal out of styrofoam containers with that cheap plastic silverware in a church parking lot, and that same person who will leave swearing that was the best meal they've had in 55 days. We need leaders who sit back just far enough but can't stop themselves from still leaning in. Because when the floods hit, I swear to you, we only have each other. Thank you. Man, I love West Virginia so freaking hard. Thank you. Okay, listen, we have to stop because now, no one taught me what to do in these moments, so maybe that lasted a little too long. I just don't know what to do, y'all. I'm out of my wheelhouse here. But I told Brian when I sat down half an hour later than everybody else, I'm like, I just do what I want. But now I am absolutely positively stoked because I get to introduce you to a mountain mama, a community advocate, a West Virginia Wonder Woman, an activist, a past member of the West Virginia House of Delegates. But I want y'all to know, Miss Danielle Walker is my friend.
Good evening, West Virginia. Oh, Mountaineers, we are here, and it's time to rise. The time was yesterday, but today we stand in unity. We must ignite and unite in this fight, not just for what we're against, but for what we deserve. See, we deserve clean air, and we deserve clean water, and we deserve safe, affordable housing. We deserve health care for all. We deserve clothing that fits our bodies and our pocketbooks. No one excluded and everyone is included. West Virginians, we are no strangers to exploitation. We've been used for our land, used for our labor, used for our bodies, and used for our blood. And we have been given black lung, but no funding to treat it. Roads that crumble, bridges that collapse, hospitals hours away, counties with no child care, and a Dollar General to get you some grocery. Let that sit with you. the floods hit and the fires rage, we don't wait on the motherfucking government. I'm sorry, Mama, because I said I wasn't going to cuss today. But when you feel the fire of West Virginians, sometimes you just got to let loose. Because you are my people and I am yours and we are one. So we turn to each other because we've been doing our job and theirs for years. But y'all, it ends now. This system wasn't built for us, and we won't hold it up any longer. See, work is like love. They're action words. We've done the labor. Now we demand the damn return. No more leaders who ignore us. No more billionaires hoarding wealth. No more begging in the richest nation on earth. No more. See, we've dusted ourselves off too many times after layoffs, after disasters, after waiting for care that never comes. We're not broken. We're battle tested. See, we take a stand for social justice. We take a stand for reproductive rights. We take a stand for economic justice. We take a stand for environmental justice. And we're going to take a damn stand for political justice. Because words without works are a waste. And West Virginians, you are not a waste. You are warriors. You are warriors. You on top. You are warriors. So let's make this declaration together. Y'all know I had to go back in the archives when I was sitting underneath the Golden Dome. So if you've heard the speech, do your job. I want you after every declaration to take a stand with me and yell so they can hear us in Charleston. I want them to hear you in your city. I want them to hear you in your county. And damn it, they're going to hear us in D.C. today. Are y'all ready, Mountaineers? Access to healthy food. Do your job. Access to rural health care. Do your job. Access to a fair wage. Do your job. Access to reproductive and trans care. Do your job. Justice for all. Do your job. Now, the plan of action. Y'all ready? Are you fired up? Are you fired up? Well, let's go, Mountaineers. I need you to walk with me. I need you to stand with me. I need you to protect me. I need you to love me. Because we are not done. We are one. I am Danielle Walker. Mama, I'm sorry, but I ain't going no fucking where. union labor, we not going nowhere. So let me go ahead and introduce the next speaker. West Virginia, we know that government won't save us. We save each other. And when the floods come and the bosses cut corners, this brother shows up. A Marine, a father, a son, a working class organizer, the force behind a movement built for and by the people. Blue Jay Rising. He doesn't chase power, he holds it accountable. He walked the picket lines, brought aid when no one else would, and speaks with truth with the same grit he lives in. So if you're ready to rise, come on, y'all, it's time to rise. Listen close. Your warrior, Zach Shrewsbury. Come on, my friend.
Wow. Thank you. This is a great crowd. Thank you all for showing up today, truly. It shows the solidarity that we need in this state. It shows everyone here is willing to come here and stand against fascism, stand against racism, and stand up for our neighbors being persecuted by ICE across this nation. Thank you for showing solidarity against the clown regime occupying our government. Thank you. My name is Zach Shrewsbury. I'm a community organizer, activist. I'm the executive director of Blue Jay Rising. And I'm here today not to stand before you as a politician, but as a man who is tired of watching this country be ruled by corporations, tired of watching our state be blown apart by barons, and I'm tired of watching our people die at the hands of Big Pharma. We are the line in the sand, y'all. We are at the breaking moment in this country. Fascism is here, but Appalachia can stand against it because we can be the beginning of the end for the oligarchy. But we must fight. Fight like our history demands. Fight like our ancestors did. We are the working class answer to a system that thought we'd stay quiet, and we must remember that. I'm a United States Marine, an organizer, West Virginian. And thanks to Senator Sanders, I get to make a declaration today to show the nation that time has come that we all must lead the charge against fascism. Because we are no longer governed, we are controlled. By the cowards in D.C., by billionaires and career politicians, by capitalists who sold us out long ago. They've poisoned our rivers, they blew apart our mountains, and they laughed while we buried our families and begged for aid. Because they see, boo it. They see West Virginia as a sacrifice zone, a plan to extract, pollute, experiment, and abandon. But now we must rise and challenge and beat back that corruption with everything we have. We are done asking for justice. We are demanding it. We are done begging for power. We are seizing it. And this is the working class offensive, and we need leaders in it. What do the leaders look like? It looks like you. It's not just me standing here on stage, not the speakers. It's not Senator Sanders, it's all of us. It's the single mother in Welch working 2 jobs. It's the retired miner fixing a neighbor's roof for free. It's the high school kid raising his brother because addiction or the system took their parents. That's West Virginia grit. That's leadership. That's who we are in this state. We don't quit. You don't need a title to lead. You need fire. You need grit. You need purpose. And that's what we're here today. That's one of the reasons why we built Blue Jay Rising. Not just a movement, but a model, a new system of politics born out of service, solidarity, and struggle. We knock on doors with food, not just flyers. We show up with flood relief, not empty promises. We organize not to win power, but for ourselves, but to return power to you. Blue Jay Rising is how we flip the system on its head. And they fear it because it works. They fear it because it's real. Because it's not politics as usual. It's politics as survival. From McDowell to Mingo, Boone to Bluefield, we've proven that if you meet people's needs, they'll rise up with you. That's revolution. That's the future. And that's how we change the face of politics in this country. Because once again, we cannot ask for permission. We're not asking for a chance. We're taking it. Do not back down. We will not be bought, and we do not betray our people. From this day forward, let them know the working class is a new voice, and it's ours. This is class consciousness, awakening from the holler to the city. This is the class struggle, rising up against the oligarchs and the capitalists that exploit us every day. Now, I do have a message to our wonderful supermajority and our federal legislators who don't do anything for the state. Yeah, boo them. Boo them. They suck. Because they're bootlickers. They're cowards. Con men. They bent the knee to a false king. They pledged loyalty to Donald Trump while our people starved, while our kids died from poisoned water and rotten policy. The Republican politicians turning their backs on West Virginia. They traded truth for a photo op. They don't speak for us. They lie to us and only speak for their wallets. Donald Trump is a sorry excuse for a man. Pitiful. Pitiful human being. Shelley Moore Capito and her feudal family are not leaders. And the biggest joke of them all is Patrick Morrisey, because he sure as hell isn't a leader. Boo, Patrick Morrisey. Boo. He's a horrible man. They're frauds, bought and paid for. They profit off your labor while they prop their feet on your backs. They never worked a shift. They never buried a brother. They never earned an honest day's pay. They say they love this country, but they stood with a man who tried to burn the Constitution to the ground. They masquerade as patriots, but I've seen real patriots. I've bled beside them, I've built with them, and I've uplifted communities with them, and they are not them. So this is our stand, West Virginia. Our moment, our state. We will not be quiet. We will not be broken. We will not be ruled by cowards, billionaires, or kings. So let the Capitol shake. Let the oligarchs run scared. Let the bootlickers scream on Fox News, because West Virginia is not for sale. The people are rising, and we will lead the damn charge. Because this is our declaration. This is our revolution, and we are coming. Solidarity with the working class. Organize your communities. Run for office, and take back what's yours. Now, I believe Senator Sanders will be right behind me shortly. That doesn't mean you can't give him a very long welcome, a very big mountain steak welcome. So until he comes out here, give it to him. Senator Sanders.
Power to the people! 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 Power to the people right on! Say we want a revolution. We better get on right away.
Thank you. What a great turnout. I was told that West Virginia was a conservative state. Somebody got it wrong. Let me thank the Exit Angels, Brian Butcher, Amy Jo Hutchinson, Danielle Walker, and Zach Shrewsbury for their work. All right, let me cut to the chase. We are living in a moment that is unprecedented in the modern history of this country, and we have got to act in an unprecedented way in response. You know, I've been all over this country in the last number of months, and what I've learned is the American people do not want to live under an oligarchic form of society. The American people and the men and women who put on the uniform of this country fought and died to defend democracy. And we are not going to let Trump take us to an authoritarian society. And the working people of this country understand there is something profoundly wrong when you have a president who gives $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1%. And then makes massive cuts to Medicaid. 15 million Americans, including 50,000 right here in West Virginia, are going to lose their health care. Cuts to nutrition, literally taking food out of the mouths of hungry kids. Now, we understand that what's going on right now is an acceleration of what's gone on in this country for the last 50 years, and that is the people on top who have never, ever had it so good, they're not satisfied. They got a couple of $100 billion, not enough. They want more and more, and they, in their greed. See, these are very religious people. And their religion is greed, and they worship on the altar of money. And they don't care if they throw people off of health insurance. And you know what happens? Let's be frank. Let's throw it out on the table. When you throw 15 million people off of the health care they have, working class people, low-income people, you know what happens when people can't go to a doctor when they need to? They die. Study came out from Yale and the University of Pennsylvania estimating that up to 50,000 people a year will die unnecessarily because of Trump's big, beautiful bill. So, but it is not just that bill. What's gone on in the last 50 years of this country is there has been a massive transfer of wealth from the bottom 90% to the top 1%. The Rand Corporation, not a particularly progressive group, estimates that that transfer of wealth was $75 trillion from the bottom 90% to the top 1%. Now, in that same period, and this is really unbelievable, think back what life was like 50 years ago and all of the technological improvements that we have seen making workers far more productive. But you know what's happened during that period? Despite all of that increase in worker productivity, real inflation accounted for. Weekly wages for American workers are lower today than they were 50 years ago. So what we are here tonight to say loudly and clearly, we want, we demand, we will have. an economy that works for all of us, not just the 1%. Now, like many of you who are here today, and certainly the majority of the people in West Virginia, I grew up in a working class family. My dad had a job, went to work every day, just never made any money. And we, lived paycheck to paycheck. There was great stress in our household. I remember the fights between my mom and my dad about money all of the time. And right now, and by the way, that reality of living in a rent-controlled apartment and seeing what stress does to families that don't have money, that has motivated my political life. Because I know and you know, and this is really, again, quite incredible, that today in the richest country in the history of the world, 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. Anybody here living paycheck to paycheck? All right. So you all know what that is about. What it's about is that you wake up in the morning and you're saying, am I going to be able to pay the rent at the end of the month? Am I going to be able to buy the decent quality food my kid needs? And what happens if somebody in the family gets sick and I have a large deductible? How am I going to pay that? I can't go to the doctor. My mom's sick. She can't afford prescription drugs. What am I going to do? And right now, throughout this country, there are millions of people living with massive amounts of stress. And do you know what happens when you live with stress? That's right. Now, here is a fact. I think many of you may know that pathetically, despite all of the money we spend on health care in this country, we have a lower life expectancy than other wealthy countries. You all know that? About 4 years younger. But what you don't know is that working class Americans are living 6 years shorter lives than the wealthy. A number of years ago, I did a hearing in the Senate. We had a bunch of doctors up there. And what they were talking about is what's called diseases of despair. You know what that is? And that is that when people live under constant stress, when every single day is a battle for survival, things happen to their minds, things happen to their bodies. They get sicker, physically sicker, mentally as well. And the end result of that is a lot of people in this country die because they're trying to escape life, and they're turning to drugs, they're turning to booze, they're turning to cigarettes, whatever. But the bottom line is that in the richest country in the history of this world, millions of our people are struggling just to survive and are experiencing enormous stress. Now, what our job is to profoundly take on the ideology of the corporate world and the oligarchs. And what our job is to understand, and you're not going to hear too many people talking about it, is that today and into the future, when we see an explosion of technology with AI and robotics, we can fulfill what humanity has been dreaming about for a very long time. We can, in fact, provide a good quality standard of living for every man, woman, and child on this country. But in order to do that, we're going to have to take on the greed of the oligarchs. And we're going to have to tell them that no, it is not acceptable from a moral or economic point of view that one man, Mr. Musk, has more wealth than the bottom 52% of American households. Now, am I missing something, or is that totally crazy that one guy has more wealth than the bottom half of households in America? Does anybody think it is vaguely right that the top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 93%? Anybody think it's right that CEOs of large corporations make 350 times what their workers make? So that is what our struggle is about, is to take on the greed of these people and say, you know what? You cannot and will not have it all. But their greed is not only, and sometimes I stop and I think about it. I mean, how much money does anybody need? I mean, really, everybody wants to have money. No great secret about that. But the idea that these guys are prepared to support legislation which takes food away from hungry kids, throws people off of health care, cuts housing, in order what? To give them a massive tax break that they don't need. They have enough money, these guys, to support their family for the next 1,000 years. They don't need any more. But it's not just what's going on in America today is not just massive amounts and unprecedented amounts of income and wealth inequality. That's bad enough. But what these guys are also doing is moving very rapidly to control our political system. The worst decision, I think, or at least one of them, made by the U.S. Supreme Court, and they made a lot of bad decisions, but certainly one of them was this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. And the result of that decision is that right now, billionaires have spent many, many hundreds of millions of dollars in both political parties to support their candidates. Now, I have an idea. I want you to hear me here. Any one of you who wants to kick in a mere $270 million to a presidential candidate, you know what? Hey, you can end up having the most important position in government. Only $270 million. But that's not just Musk helping to elect Trump. One of the reasons, in my view, that Kamala Harris lost this election is she had too many billionaires telling her not to speak up for the working class of this country. And when we talk about where we are politically today, this is the way I see it as a member of the U.S. Senate. Number one, you got a Republican Party which increasingly is a party that supports the cult of the individual. Do you know what I mean by that? In other words, look, we all have friends who disagree with us politically. That's what America is supposed to be about. But what you're seeing now, and this was not the case so many years ago, you're seeing now Trump snapping his finger and people jumping as high as they can. And when occasionally, give you one example of this. It's a guy named Tom Tillis. I don't know if that name means anything. All right, Tillis is a Republican senator from North Carolina. So Tillis takes a look at this terrible, big, beautiful bill that he sees. It's going to be a disaster for North Carolina, as it will be for every other state in the country. He looks at the bill, studies it, and he says, you know what? I can't vote for that bill. And then you know what happens? Within minutes, Trump is blasting them in the social media, and people are threatening to raise all kinds of money to run against them. And a few hours later, Dilla said, hey, I'm out of here. I'm not running for re-election. So what you have is a situation, and it's not just in the Republican Party, give you another example. I have led the effort in the United States Senate to stop funding this horrific Netanyahu war against the people of Gaza. And we are making some progress. A couple of weeks ago, I introduced a resolution to ban the sale of weapons, certain weapons, to Israel. The last time I did that a number of months ago, we got 15 votes. This time we got 27 votes. But my point here, the point that I want to make is if you think that not every single person in the U.S. Senate understands what is going on in Gaza now, that children are literally being starved to death. They know it. They know it. All right? But what is happening is there are super PACs who say, you stand up and don't fund military aid to Israel, we are going to run against you. And in fact, groups like AIPAC have done that, and they have defeated really good members of Congress. So when we think about the reforms that we need in this country, I want all of you to place at the very top of your list the need to end this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. We believe in a democracy of one person, one vote, not billionaires buying politicians. Now, I know that Trump did very, very well here in the state of West Virginia. So I want to say a word. I want to say a word to folks in West Virginia and, in fact, across the country who kind of believed what Trump was saying during the campaign. Trump talked a good game, but this is what, in fact, he has done. Trump did not campaign, not that I heard, and I paid attention, that he was going to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1%. Did you hear him say that during the campaign? Did you hear him talk about $900 billion in tax breaks for large, profitable corporations? Did you hear him talk about throwing 15 million Americans off of Medicaid? Did you hear him campaign on raising health insurance premiums by more than 75% for some 20 million Americans? Did you hear him campaign on taking away free school meals for up to 16 million kids? Did you hear him campaign on doubling or tripling monthly student loan payments for millions of Americans who are already drowning in debt? I don't recall Trump during the campaign talking about shutting down Social Security field offices, making it harder for seniors and people with disabilities to get the benefits that they deserve. And I surely did not hear Trump talking about throwing some 80,000 employees out of the Veterans Administration, which will lower the quality of care our veterans receive. So Trump campaigned on a series of lies. He said he would speak up for the working families. The truth of the matter, he is standing up for his oligarchic buddies. So what do we have to do? What we have got to do, and the reason I'm here in West Virginia, I'm not here just to give a speech. I am here to beg of you to organize around this state, get working class people organized to stand up and fight the fights that have to be fought. Now, whether the Democratic Party is capable of making the changes that are needed, I don't know. But if not, you make it for them. We already have one party that represents the rich and the powerful. We don't need two. But our mission right now is not just taking on Trump, which we have got to do every day. The reason that Trump was elected is that he kept saying, you know, the system is broken. And he's right. The system is broken, but the problem is he is going to only make it worse. So let's look at a broken system, and let's talk about what we have got to do. Anybody here think that the American healthcare system is vaguely effective? I want you all to know, we spend as a nation almost twice as much per capita on healthcare as do the people of any other nation. You all know that? We are spending an insane $14,000 a year for every man, woman, and child. Add it all up. Medicare, Medicaid, personal health care. $14,000 a year. Now, if you're going to spend $14,000, we should have, by far, the best health care system in the world. Well, you know what? Not only do we not have the best, study after study shows that we have one of the worst of any major industrialized country. So are you ready for a radical statement? All right, I don't want you collapsing here. The function of a rational healthcare system is to provide quality care to every man, woman, and child, not huge profits for the drug companies and the insurance companies. It is insane. It is literally insane that we have some 60,000 Americans, and you may know some of them, who die every single year because they cannot afford to get to a doctor on time. It is beyond unspeakable that some 40% of older people who are diagnosed with cancer end up going bankrupt or depleting their finances. Healthcare is a human right, not a privilege. And we have got to join every other major country on earth in guaranteeing health care to all Americans. And I want you just to think, and again, guys, this is not a radical idea. I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border, somehow or another, spending about half as much as we do. They guarantee health care to all people. You end up in a hospital in Canada, you know what the bill is when you leave? It's zero. And that is more or less the case in most wealthy countries. So stand up proudly and make it clear that when anyone who comes before you and says, vote for me, you say, yeah, tell me that you're going to guarantee health care to all, that you have the guts to take on the insurance companies and the drug companies. But it is not just healthcare system which is broken. It's our educational system as well. We got any teachers here? Thank you, teachers. These are our heroines and heroes who every day go to work under very stressful conditions because they love the kids that they're working with, and we thank you very much. But again, in the wealthiest nation on earth, we should have a child care system which cherishes our little ones. And by the way, when we talk about a broken system, while Elon Musk is worth $400 billion, we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. So when you hear all of these politicians say they love America, if you love America, you love the future of America, which is our children. And yet we have a child care system. I don't know how much it costs here in West Virginia, but in my state, people are paying $20,000 to send one kid to child care. Well, if you're making $50,000 a year, how do you afford $20,000? And meanwhile, the teachers are making, 15, 16 bucks an hour. So we need to understand that in a vibrant democracy, which is what I want us to be, in a competitive global economy, which we are in, we need the best educational system in the world. And that means that we appreciate our educators. In Vermont, there are districts in rural areas where people are starting off at $35,000, $40,000 a year teaching. And housing is pretty expensive in Vermont. That's why we have introduced legislation that says every teacher in America earns at least $60,000 a year. There was once a time when proudly the United States led the world in having the best educated population. We had a higher percentage of our people getting college degrees than any other country. That, you should all know, is no longer the case. What we have got to do is to make it clear that we want our young people, all of our young people, regardless of their income, to be able to get the best education that they can. And that means that we've got to make public colleges and universities tuition free. and that we have to make trade schools available to all people to get the training they need to do the work we desperately need. Oh, you have something here? But it's not just education. Once again, point that I'm making is, look, if we were a poor country, I'd come before you and say, look, it really would be great if everybody had health care, if all of our kids could get a decent education. We're a poor country. We can't afford it. Brothers and sisters, we are not a poor country. We're the richest country in the history of the world. And when we talk about a broken system, talk about the major housing crisis that we face in America. We got 800,000 Americans who are homeless. We got 20 million households spending 50% of their limited incomes on housing. If we can spend $1 trillion a year on a bloated military budget, we can build the millions of units of low-income and affordable housing we need. And at a time when wages have been stagnant for decades, at a time when millions of Americans today are working for starvation wages. I remember talking more than once to single moms trying to raise kids on 11, 12 bucks an hour, and you can't do that. We have got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, at least 17 bucks an hour. Brothers and sisters, I know that West Virginia has a history of being one of the great trade union states in America. And we remember the incredible courage of your coal miners and others who stood up against corporate greed. Now, right now, because of what we're seeing in our economy, millions of workers now want to join unions. And in fact, the trade union movement has never been as popular as today as it has been in a very long time. Because workers understand what is obviously true, that if you want decent wages, decent benefits, decent working conditions, you got to join with your brothers and sisters, form a union, and negotiate a decent contract. Now, I know that, you know that, and the bosses know that, and that is why we are seeing massive anti-union, union-busting efforts all across this country. And that's why we've got to pass what's called the PRO Act. And that means that if an employer acts illegally in preventing workers from exercising their constitutional right, there'll be very heavy penalties against that employer. Unbelievably, the United States is one of very few countries in the world that does not guarantee paid family and medical leave. Well, let's put that up on the agenda. When a kid gets sick, a mom has a right to stay home with that kid without worried about being fired. So, brothers and sisters, I am not going to fool you. You understand, as I do, that the oligarchs have enormous, unlimited amounts of wealth. They have enormous power. They control the media. They own the media. And they own many of the places that you work in. But this is But this is what I believe from the bottom of my heart. If we do not allow Trump and his friends to play the same old demagogic trick of trying to divide us up, oh, you're undocumented, you're black, you're Muslim, you're Jewish, you're this, you're that, we got to all be separate. Our job is to bring our people together around an agenda that works for all of us. So West Virginia, this is a working class state. Let's start electing people who represent the working class, not the billionaires. Thank you all very much.